Pranam, Jai Jinendra, everybody. Welcome back and Happy New Year to you all. I hope you all had a good break. Let's resume today's class from the point where we left off last time before our Christmas break. Let's start with the prayers first. Namo Rihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Uchayanam, Namo Loye Sabba Sahunam, Eso Kanchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano Mangalanam Cha Sabbe Simpadam Havi Mangalam. Namo Rihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Uchayanam, Namo Loye Sabba Sahunam. Eso Kanchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano Mangalanam Cha Sabbe Simpadam Havi Mangalam. Namo Rihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vachayanam, Namo Loye Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasana Mangalanam Cha Sabbe Simpadam Bhave Mangalam. Kavadhe Dharanendra Cha Sochitam Karma Kurvati Prabhustulya Manovrutti Parshanatha Sriyestu Veera Sarasura Surendra Mahito Virmuda Sansrita Virena Bheta Swakarmani Chayo Viraya Nityam Nama Viratirthamidam Pravtamatulam Virashighoram Tapo Vire Sri Dhruti Kirtikantini Chayo Sri Virabhadram Vise Anguthe Amrutavase Laptitana Bandar Sri Guru Gautam Samariye Manavanchita Pradata. As you all know, the current topic is from the Kalp Sutra. We started off with understanding the importance of the Kalp Sutra and its history, and where it is recited or read on a regular basis. Then we came up to the life of Bhagwan Mahavir, and we are currently learning about the previous lives of Bhagwan Mahavir. What we also discussed and decided, just to remind everybody, is that in this current topic, we will finish the 27 lives of Bhagwan Mahavir to the point of his life, the last life before being born as Bhagwan Mahavir, and we'll end this particular topic at that point. So we will not carry on with Kalp Sutra as the main topic. And we did take a poll, or I did ask participants to suggest different topics. You had a couple of suggestions. One was Nav Tattva, another one was about Jain geography. But please continue to send any suggestions if you have any as to the next topic after we finish this topic on the previous lives of Bhagwan Mahavir. Today we'll pick up from the point at which we left before the Christmas break, and in particular discuss the life of Vishvabhuti, and then go on to the life of the Prusht Vasudev that we will be discussing next Tuesday. I'm going to spend some time on revising, just for the benefit of everybody, of where you got to. So just a quick recitation of all the previous slides. So let me start by sharing my slides. At the end, I've got some points of discussion, questions that I think you will find interesting, and if there are any other questions that arise, then we'll discuss them as well. Okay, I'm going to now share my slides. So the last class on the 19th December, we reviewed the narrative of Bhagwan Mahavir's life, from his first life as Naisar to the 14th life. And let's just revise this. So as you all remember, the first life that is described is the one in which Bhagwan Mahavir's soul achieves samyaktva. That's the first step of spiritual development. And that is when the spiritual progress starts. Following that life, he was born as a Dev in Saudharma Devlok with a lifespan of 1 Palyopam. In the third life, which was the one which is very significant, and we spent a lot of time discussing that life, Bhagwan Mahavir's soul as Marichi was the grandson of Bhagwan Vishvabhuti and the son of Bharat Chakravarti. In this life, he does become a monk as a disciple of Bhagwan Vishvabhuti, and he spends a long time in that particular position. However, as we learned at a certain stage, he gives up the vows of a monk and adopts a slightly different, easier way of life as a Tridandi. And he continues to live as a Tridandi ascetic, and the path that he had started as a Tridandi ascetic, we will see that in a lot of subsequent lives that becomes a movement, that becomes a sort of a religion, and that is something that he continues to adopt in many future lives as well. But the liberties that were taken in the particular order of a Tridandi were obviously significantly inferior to the vows of a Jain monk, and therefore, in terms of spiritual progress, that particular path was obviously not as robust and as good as anything that a Jain monk would normally follow. From the life of Marichi, Bhagwan Mahavir's soul is born in Brahmdevlok as a Dev with a lifespan of 10 Sagarupams, which is extremely long, but not maximum. In the fifth life, he is born again as a Brahmin by the name of Kaushik. That's a human life. Between the fifth and the sixth main lives that are described, there is a long period of time when Bhagwan Mahavir's soul is born as in subhuman forms in all kinds of Tiriyan Gati. And we learned about that and the reasons for that. The reasons were, as you might remember, was the bad karmas that were acquired during the life as a Kausik Brahmin. Then after a long time in these subhuman life forms, in the sixth life, is born again as a Pushpamitra Brahmin, human, and he again becomes a Tridandi ascetic towards the end of a long life. And as a result of the penance that he and the tap that he performs as a Tridandi ascetic, in the seventh life he is born as a Dev in Saudharma Devlok with a moderately long lifespan. In the eighth life, so as you've noticed, between the fifth and the sixth, all these other life which were subhuman are not counted as major lives. Therefore, when you talk about the 27 lives, a lot of these other lives between the fifth and the sixth vow are not counted in those major lives. Therefore, even though we say 27 lives, there are lots of other lives in between the fifth and the sixth major life. In the eighth life, which was that of an Agni Dyot Brahmin, human, again in a place called Chaitya, his lifespan was 60 lakh purva, and towards the end of this long life, he again becomes a three-dandi ascetic. Following that life, as a result of the punya that was acquired, he again becomes a Dev in the second Ishan Devlok with a moderately long lifespan. And from there is born again in the 10th life as Agni Bhuti, a Brahmin in Mandar with a lifespan of 56 lakh purva. As you can see, with every subsequent birth, the duration of the lifespan is decreasing because the times were decreasing. So this is moving from the time of Bhagwan Rishabdev, where it would be maximum lifespan, and then as time goes by, as we know now, as we are experiencing now, the lifespans of all human beings be progressively reducing. Towards the end of this 10th life as Agni Bhuti, he again becomes a three-dandi ascetic and acquires a lot of punya, and is born in the 11th life as a Dev in a Sanat Kumar Devlok with a moderate lifespan. And each of these Devloks is higher than the previous one. So in some respects, what we also need to recognize is that there is progressively a greater acquisition of punya in whatever penance and tap he does during this subsequent lives as a three-dandi ascetic, and that takes him to a higher and higher devlok. In the 12th life, is born again from Sanat Kumar Devlok as Bhardwaj Brahmin with a lifespan of 44 lakh purvas. And again, towards the end of this life, Bhardwaj becomes a three-dandi ascetic. And in the 13th life, is born in Mahendra Devlok with a moderate lifespan. 14th life is a Sthavar Brahmin, human, in a city called Rajgiri with a lifespan of 34 lakh purva. Even in this life, he becomes a three-dandi ascetic towards the end of his life, and is born again in Brahma Devlok with a moderate lifespan in the 15th life. In the 16th life, that is the one that we are going to discuss today, is born as Vishvabhuti, human, and for the first time after a long time, he is born in a royal household as a Kshatriya, not as a Brahmin, and a prince in a royal household in the city-state of Rajgiri. Now, this state was ruled by a king called Vishwanandi. He had a son called Prince Vishakhanandi by his queen Priyangu. He had a younger brother. So Vishwanandi had a younger brother called Vishakhabhuti, who had a son called Vishvabhuti by his queen Dharini. And Vishvabhuti is the soul of Bhagwan Mahavir. So he was the son of the Yuvraj, meaning the younger brother of the king of this particular kingdom. Now, his lifespan in that life was 10 million years. Now, that sounds a huge lifespan, but when we look at the previous ones, where the last one was 35 lakh, 34 lakh purva, this is significantly smaller lifespan. Vishvabhuti was courageous and well loved by all his people, and in his youth he married many queens and enjoyed his life. Once there is an incident that results in Vishvabhuti being tricked into abandoning one of his favorite gardens that he's enjoying with his queens. This particular circumstance was engineered by his cousin Vishakhanandi, who was the son of King Vishwanandi. And this particular set of circumstances results in or sets off a chain which ultimately leads to a lot of problems, and we will see that the consequence of what happens in this life, in the life as Bhagwan Mahavir as well. So we'll go into a bit more detail of what happens in this particular incident. I haven't written it down in a slide, but I'll just recite the event. Now, Vishvabhuti was very popular with the people. He was enjoying his life. He had many queens, and as was the custom, they had some royal garden, and the rule was that if one prince or one king and his queens or wives of the prince and his wives were all enjoying were roaming in the garden, then another member of the royal family would not enter that garden, and it was an unwritten law. Now, once when Vishvabhuti was in the garden with his queens, his cousin Vishakhanandi also comes to the gates of this garden with his queens, and he wants to enter the garden to spend some time with his queens in the garden. Now, obviously, the guards who were present there inform him that you cannot go in because Prince Vishvabhuti is currently in there with his wives. And there is one other dasi or female servant of Vishakhanandi's mother, Priyangu, who is also present there. So one narrative basically says that this servant, this dasi, goes to the queen, Priyangu, and tells him that I couldn't enter the garden, but that is fine. But the fact that your son, Prince Vishakhanandi, was also prevented from entering the garden with his queens because Prince Vishvabhuti was there enjoying with his queens. What would happen, because he's so popular in the future, and is it likely that because of this favoritism, your son is likely to lose his more senior position as the king's son? And as a result of this conversation with the Dasi, Queen Priyangu gets very upset, and she thinks that she needs to do something to establish the position that she believes her son, Prince Visakhanandi, should be enjoying. So she makes it known to the king that she is very upset. The king comes to know this and comes along and finds out the reason. And he is told about the fact that Prince Visakhanandi has had to stand out, and that the queen wants him to make it possible for Visakhanandi to enter the garden and for Vishwabhuti to leave. Now the king understands and knows that this is not fair and it is not right, that Vishwabhuti has the right to stay there, but to please his queen and this was something that was engineered by his son Vishakhanandi as well. Between them, he decides to find a reason so that Prince Vishwabhuti would leave the garden immediately. And he sets off an alarm to say that there is a sort of an uprising in a neighboring area of the kingdom, and he needs Vishvabhuti to go there with his army and settle the uprising so that the kingdom is not in any danger. And as soon as that particular announcement is made, Vishvabhuti rushes out. He abandons his sojourn with his queens and rides quickly to this place where the so-called uprising was. And when he arrives there, the leader of that particular place is very welcoming, and there is no evidence that there was any kind of uprising, and everything is fine. And Vishvabhuti is puzzled and comes back, and he wants to go back into the garden, but then he is told that his cousin brother Vishakhanandi is already in there with his wives, and he then realizes that all this was really engineered to get me out of the garden and to stop me enjoying what was my right to be in there. Now, this minor, to us, it may seem like a simple incident, but the kinds of manipulations that go on in royal households is just an example of that kind of thing that was happening here. And Vishvabhuti is very upset and angry that this has happened. And he is, at that point, when he realizes that all this has been engineered to get rid of him from the garden, he bursts out in anger, makes a fist, and he strikes a huge tree with his fist, and he had enormous strength, and he was extremely strong. And as a result of the strength of that blow that he struck the tree with, all the fruit from the tree fall down, and he shouts out in anger that, like I have dropped the fruit from this tree with just one blow of my fist, I can kill you all, but I won't do that because I respect my king and my family. And he gets very, very upset of this chain of events, and he thinks that life is not worth living in the form that he was as a prince. So he becomes detached from worldly life and abandons his life as a prince and becomes a Jain monk as a disciple of a great Acharya called Sambhuti Acharya. Now, soon as he becomes a monk, he again takes on that life in a very courageous way, just as he was leading life as a prince, and performs severe penances, taps, including fasting for a month. So he does maskaman on a regular basis, and he performs this kind of taps for almost 1,000 years, according to this version in Kalpasutra. Now, because of a long time spent in this kind of severe tap, his body becomes very thin and appears to have become very weak. And he is in the city of Mathura as a monk. By this time, he had obtained permission from his guru to travel alone. Normally, monks do not travel alone, but in those times, when the monk had achieved a certain level of spiritual awakening and ability, he was given permission by the Acharya Maharaj to travel and go on their own without the need for the rest of the sadhu sangh to be accompanying them. So he has been going from place to place, carrying on his meditation and following the principles of a Jain monk. But he is in the city of Mathura, and while walking, he gets knocked down by a cow walking on the same path. Now, as fate would have it, his cousin Visakhanandi had also come to Mathura to wed a princess of Mathura, and he sees Vishvabhuti from the palace that he is residing in, because that was along the royal path, and he recognizes him, and is surprised to see that Vishvabhuti has become so thin because of all his penance, and he mocks him. So there was a bit of enmity and jealousy between the two, and Vishakhanandi shouts out in a mocking voice that where is that strength gone that was able to drop all the fruit from a huge tree with a single blow? You seem to have lost all your strength now that you've just been knocked down by a cow. And that particular mocking statement by his cousin bites Vishvabhuti very much. And the mocking words anger Vishvabhuti, and in a fit of anger, he abandons his dharma as a muni. He gets completely, he's insulted, and he takes it very much to heart. He forgets that he is a monk now. None of this need to bother him. But that old rivalry and that old jealousies just resurface again, even after such a long time living the life of for practicing the 5 vows, practicing the 3 guptis, and all the great rituals of the life of a Jain monk. He forgets everything that he has learned, and he responds angrily to Vishakhanandi, saying that he still has great strength in spite of his wasted body. And because he's so angry and he wants to prove that this mocking insult from his cousin has no basis, and he wants to prove him wrong, what he does, he angrily demonstrates his strength by grabbing the cow's horns and swings her round and round and throws her up in the air. Now, just imagine the scene. This is a monk who has taken vows not to harm any other living being, is going this far. This show of great strength on Vishvabhuti's part frightens Visakhanandi, because Vishvabhuti, Bhagwan Mahavir's soul, was known to be extremely strong and powerful. And Vishakhanandi is frightened, and he runs back inside the palace in case he becomes a victim of Vishvabhuti's anger. That incident ends there, but what that incident started, the fit of anger and extreme agitation in Vishvabhuti's mind, that does not subside. He completely loses his equanimity and forgets his vows as a monk. He makes a wish, a niyanu, and we'll, in the discussion, talk about what is a niyanu, to trade the value of his tap for such strength in a future life that he would be able to kill Vishakhanandi. Now just imagine what he's asking for. He says, as a result of all the punya that I've acquired from this tap, I want to be an extremely strong person who has the power to actually kill this, my cousin, Vishakhanandi. All he's asking for is strength. Vishvabhuti had taken a vow of absolute non-violence to all life, in his thought, speech, and action, but in this fit of anger, he descends spiritually and prays for strength to seek revenge for an insult. Now, remember that this is the soul of Bhagwan Mahavir, who in his life as Bhagwan Mahavir repeatedly, again and again, demonstrates the power of forgiveness, the power of not raising a finger, even when you have got the strength and the power to destroy the person in front of you. So Bhagwan Mahavir in his life suffers the pain inflicted by Sangam Dev, one of the worst upsargs that he sustained in the 12.5 years of his penance. You might remember that. And this is the same soul, the same of Bhagwan Mahavir, who has vowed to seek revenge for an insult from his cousin. Maintaining his life as a monk following this incident did not dampen this fire of revenge. Vishvabhuti did not repent these thoughts of revenge and did not seek any reversal. So he did not do any prayaschit. However, as a result of all the punya that he acquired during the long life as a monk, Vishvabhuti's soul is born as a Dev in Mahasukra Devlok, that is a fairly high Devlok. And after a long life enjoying the pleasures of Mahasukra Devlok, Bhagwan Mahavir's soul in the 18th life is born as Tripusht Vasudev. Now we will talk about the life of Tripusht Vasudev. There are several incidents there and several different things to learn about from that particular life. But before we come to that, I'll open up the floor for any questions here. I'll leave this slide on. Please ask any questions that you might have. And then I've got something that I'd like to discuss with you. So we've got about 20 minutes. Go on. Anybody? You can unmute yourself. There is most of Bhagwan's previous lives of Brahmins. Is there, I don't understand the question, is there reference to how he comes across Jainism, also more importantly, who or how he takes Diksha? This is a question from Nick. Yeah? Okay. So as we've seen so far, except for this last life that we just discussed as Prince Vishvabhuti, Bhagwan Mahavir's soul was born as a Brahmin, and he does not take Diksha, a Nirgranth Diksha of a Jain monk. In most of those, in all those lives, he takes Diksha as a three-dandi ascetic, with all the freedom and the and all the different circumstances of comfort that he had propounded during the life as Marichi. So that particular order was still running, and he does not take Diksha in the proper Panch Mahavrat or the 5 great vows form as a Nirgranth Muni. He takes Diksha as an Tridandi ascetic. Does that answer your question, Nick?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
And the second part of it?
Sorry, is there reference to how he comes across Jainism?
Yes.
Is that the second part?
Yes, that's the second part.
Yeah. So in this particular life, that's the first time he becomes a monk, and the reference is that he takes Diksha from Acharya Sambhuti. There is no more detail in the two texts that I've referred to for this class. There may be more detail, but it is quite likely, as was normal, that a lot of the royal households had a regular contact with monks, and a lot of them did actually take Diksha. So within the family, there would have been a lot of past history of other ancestors taking Diksha in a similar way, and they would have been born in the household where contact with Jain Dharma and Nirgranth Munis was fairly common. But the particular incident here, when he gets angry with this particular manipulations and decides to abandon his life, and he finds Sambhuti Acharya and goes and takes Diksha from him. I'm sure that there was familiarity with that order of Nirgranth Muni, because Jain Dharma was quite prevalent in all aspects of life in that time. One particular incident that does happen after that, the rest of the family, the king and his dad and everybody else, regret this particular incident and what they had done. So they actually go back to try and persuade Prince Vishvabhuti, who is now a monk, to forgive them and apologize for this particular way they treated him, and accept the fact that that was insulting to him, and ask him to come back. But by this time, he is actually firmly set on the path of a monk, so he doesn't. So he's just mentioning that. But I presume because there was familiarity in the royal household and ancestors may have been following the same path, it was natural to find somebody and follow that same path. That's all I can assume. I mean, Trisasti Salaka Purush Charitra may have a bit more detail, and if I find any more details, I'll share that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I've not received any questions, Ajitbhai, in the chat.
Sorry, can you speak a bit loudly?
I've not received any questions in the chat, Ajitbhai.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't hear Nick very well, or you, so I've just increased the volume, so that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen again now. Okay, so the questions that I wanted to discuss. So some things that we've discussed briefly. Progress in terms of punya increases with each human life, during which Bhagwan Mahavir's soul becomes a Tridandi ascetic. Now, with each life as a Brahmin and then as a Tridandi ascetic in the same life, he goes to a higher and higher Devlok. the soul goes to a higher and higher devaloka in the subsequent life. So that would suggest that the amount of punya karma that is accumulating keeps on increasing and multiplying. Does that denote spiritual progress? Punya is one thing. What does punya actually? It gives you the facility and the circumstances that may help you progress spiritually. So you have the ability to not be burdened by poverty, by all the other difficulties in life, and may create a happy atmosphere. But unless you get exposed to the right path, spiritual progress may not happen. So there may be many different ways of acquiring punya, but unless it is also associated with an awareness of one's spirit and what is spiritual progress, this cycle of life and death with punya and then pap and then enjoying the fruits of the punya and then suffering the consequences of the pap just goes on and on until you begin to realize what is important and what is the right path. Now, there were several births as a Brahmin until the 16th life as Vishvabhuti, when he was a Kshatriya prince. What is the relevance of this? And on what resulted in this recurrent lives as a Brahmin, and each one of them at the end, towards the end of that life, becoming a Tridandi ascetic. Or what can we understand from this sequence of events? Now, even though we accept that the soul itself, every soul has the potential and to become, to go to moksha. There is no higher or lower in terms of the soul. In the ultimate form, every soul is the same. But in the kind of circumstances that we all come across and suffer from, our birth in a particular community does itself give us certain benefits or particular problems that are related to the community, to the family, to the place we are born in, and that is inevitable. No matter how hard we try to have equality in all aspects of life, we've seen that that is never completely possible. The birth as a Brahmin is considered to be inferior to that of a Kshatriya, and the inauspicious Gotra karma that Bhagwan Mahavir's soul had acquired in the life of Marichi, the third life, when he jumped up in joy and was so proud of his particular family and the status of his family. So the pride was that my Kud, my family, my clan is so great that my grandfather is the first Tirthankar, my father is the first Chakravarti, I will also be a Tirthankar, in this same time cycle, I will also be a Chakravarti at some stage, and I'll also be a Vasudev. So out of all the great lives that a soul can aspire to in terms of achievement, his particular family, he realizes and becomes so proud of the fact that his family is at such a elevated level, and he becomes extremely proud of this fact. And at that point, he acquires a lot of niche gotra karma or inauspicious gotra karma that results in him not having another life as a kshatriya in all these other several lives that follow after that life as Marichi. So that is the relevance of the several births as a Brahmin and the 16th life as Vishvabhuti. By that time, the strength of that karma has subsided, but as we know, the little of it that was left comes into fruition in the life as Bhagwan Mahavir when he spends the first 3 months of fetal life in the womb of a Brahmin, Devananda Brahmin, rather than that of a Kshatriya. And that was because the residue of that karma was left until that time. What is a Niyana? Let's briefly discuss this. Those of you who know the Chaityavandan Sutras may remember this Pratna Sutra that we recite during Chaityavandan called Jai Verai. The sutra goes like this: Jai Verai Jagguru Ho Mamam Tua Papavo Bhayavam Bhav Nivve O Magano Sarya Itfala Siddhi. Log Viruddha Chao Gurujan Puva Partakaranam Cha Suha Guru Jogo Tavayana Sevana Abho Makhanda. At this point, we put our hands down from the forehead down to that level, and we then recite Vari Jai Jaivi Niyana Mandanam Verai Tua Samaye Dhavi Mamahuj Seva Bhave Bhave Tumacharanam Dukkako Kamakho Samahi Maranam Cha Bohilabo Sampajo Maayam Tuanaha Pranam Karanenam. And the last verse is Sarva Mangala Mangalyam Sarakalyana Karanam Pradhanam Saradharmanam Jainam Jati Sasanam. Now, this Pratna Sutra is asking for several boons from Bhagwan when we are performing Chaityavandan or Darshan. And this particular phrase, Vari Jai Jaivi Niyana Bandhanam Virayato Samaye, is basically saying that even though it is forbidden in your sasan, meaning in the path that we are following, it is forbidden to ask for anything in return for performing religious activities of any kind. It is forbidden to ask for anything else. So, asking for something in return for anything good that you have done is called a niyanu. Now, a niyanu is a salya. Salya means a thorn. Anybody who engages in a niyanu will acquire what is being asked for. So the way the laws of karma work, nature gives us what we ask for. And if we desire something very strongly, we'll get it. But the teaching is be careful what you ask for, because nature often grants our wishes. And here Vishvabhuti is asking for strength, and he is given strength as a Triprusht Vasudev. He's asking for strength to kill the person that he does not like. And as a result of all the penance and the punya that is acquired, he has basically traded that. And the rule is that if you go down, if you stoop down to that level, then subsequent to nature granting you that particular wish, it will pull you down much further than that. So a Vasudev ends up after that life as a Vasudev in Narak. Now, he's basically asked for strength. He gets the strength, and in the life after the Vasudev's life, he goes to Narak. I don't know if any one of you have heard of Samraditya Kevli Charitra. There is just recently an English version of that 3-volume book that is been published. So that is a great story as well. It was written by Haribhadra Suri, and the title of that original version is called Samaichi Kaha. And Samraditya Kevli Charitra is the story of 2 lives which are tied together life after life over a period of millions of years, when one has made a very, very strong wish as a result of the tap that he had performed to be the killer of the other person. So one progressively seeks revenge and destroys his life after life. But until a certain point, nature has granted him that revenge. So he manages to kill this other person again and again in subsequent lives until there comes a time when the other person's goodness and his good punya is stronger than this person's desire for revenge, and he does not succeed. And that is one great story to understand, but you may have heard shorter versions of that. But that is similar to what Vishvabhuti has basically asked for in this life. He's asking to get more strength, and he gets it as a Triprusht Vasudev. And we will discuss what is Vasudeva and what the circumstances of Tripusht's birth and his life, and the events that occurred during that life that subsequently are unfolding in the life as Bhagwan Mahavir. Okay. Any more questions? No? Are you finding this useful? I'm sure that there are questions. If you want me to share the slides, we can do that. Just let me know if that's, I don't know if Kavit Mira, we can share slides, but I'll ask Sandeep.
Ajitbhai, I wanted to ask you, what is Tridandi?
In the life of Marichi, he described the ascetic form that Marichi actually adopts when he finds it very difficult to follow the vows of a Jain monk, and he thinks that it is something that he himself cannot follow. So the liberties that he takes is that he uses an umbrella, he wears slippers, he takes a wash on a regular basis, he wears colored clothes, and to depict all the several liberties that he takes that are different from the life of an ascetic, the life of a Nirgranth Jain monk, because the vows of a Jain monk are much stricter. He demonstrates each of the liberties that he takes so that people are able to distinguish between his path, which he recognizes right from the start is inferior and not the right path. And he calls himself Tridandi. And I think, if I remember correctly, there were 3 prongs, white lines that are drawn on the forehead like that, that represent, and he calls himself Tridandi because he says that a monk, a Jain monk, is following the path of Manogupti, Vachangupti, and Kayagupti. Panch Samiti, Tran Gupti. Gupti means that they are in control of their mind, they are in control of their speech, they are in control of their body. But I am taking liberties. And to show that I am taking liberties, meaning Dand meaning that I'm inferior, that is the different path that he sets up as Marichi, and that then continues in subsequently, and even now you can see monks, ascetics who are dressed in colorful clothes in India who are following something very similar. So that has survived all this time. But that is a Tridandi, a particular path, basically.
Thank you. So, so Tridandi wouldn't be Jain monks, would be
No,
other.
No,
other-
he had taken liberties at that time. But
Yeah.
if you remember, you're saying that until a certain stage in the life, every time a disciple came, because he was a very knowledgeable and a very, very powerful speaker, and he was able to convince a lot of disciples, whoever came seeking knowledge from him, to improve their lives or to change their lives, he would teach them the right
Follow
path,
him.
right religion, and then he would send them to Bhagwan Vishvabhuti and say, look, follow this path, that is the right path. Go to Bhagwan Vishvabhuti and become a monk. Until he came across one particular disciple who asks him an awkward question. His name was Kapil, and he says, why are you sending me to Bhagwan Vishvabhuti? You're telling me that there is dharma there, but isn't dharma there in your path as well? And Marichi, by this time, is already thinking about his comforts in old age and thinks that if I am ill when I am old and I don't have any particular disciple, who is going to look after me?
After me.
Yeah, so I'm sending everybody out there. Then he makes a statement there that yes, there is dharma in the path of Bhagwan Vishvabhuti, but there is also dharma here in my path. Now that statement was Utsutra Prarupana, that means that was a lie. He knew, and that was against the right teachings, and the recognition that he had demonstrated before that his path is inferior. If somebody wants the best path is something else, and that is that of a Nirgranth Muni. But he makes this statement that pulls him down spiritually and that extends his sansar to that point when he's time to moksha, goes up to the time of Bhagwan Mahavir.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let's end here today. We'll talk about the life of Tripusht Vasudev next week. And then we got a few of the major lives. And please think about what topic we would like after this. I'll be talking with Sandeep Bhai hopefully sometime this week or the next week. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of Jain Dharma, against the teachings of our great Sankaras and Guru Bhagwans, I ask for forgiveness. जिनाग्ना विरुद्ध काई पण बुलाए हुए ते सभी मनुचन काय करे तस्मिच्छामि दुक्कडम सर्वमंगल मांगल्यम सर्वकल्याण कारणम प्रदानम सर्वधर्माणाम जैनम जयति शासनम. Thank you all.
Pranam Ajitbhai, thank you.
Pranam Bharat, thank you. I was just looking કે તમે આવ્યા છો આજે.
Jai Vasho.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Thank you all.
Sarvana Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Thank you all. Ilaben.
Baba Ajitbhai.
Bye bye.
सकल विश्वना नाथ है प्रभु शरण आवियो आबाळता हरो अधिक बुद्धि तू शुद्ध आपजे प्रभु कृपा करी कष्ट कापजे नव कदी करी भक्ति भाव थी नव कथा सुनी निज कान थी स्मरण ना कर्યું तेम ताहरू नाथ भलु थशे केम माहरू बहु गरीब रंकने दुख आपिया तरु सुधर्मना देह कापिया अधिक लोभनी लालचे फसी फिकर ना धरी चित्त मां कशी कथन कई कूड़ा वचन नीतिना सर्व विसर्या करवडे कदी धर्म ना कर्या पण अधर्म ना कोथळा भर्या जगतनाथ हूँ डर्यो नहीं जरे अनेक पाप में संसार मां कर्या चरण थी कदी चाली ना गयो प्रभु सुपंथ मां दूर तो रह्यो चरण पाप ने पंथ तो धर्यो दिल विषे नहीं ते थकी डर्यो छल प्रपंच ने धूर्त काम नव कदी मुकी ओ छप हाम अधम जातनो प्राणी हो खरो प्रभु तू थी रह्यो सर्वदा परो કર ગમે તને જે પ્રભુ હવે અહીં બળું છું હું પાપ સંતાપમાં દુઃખથી દૂરે નાથજી કરો અરજ બાળની દિલમાં ધરો સકળ વિશ્વના નાથ હે પ્રભુ શરણ